How is it possible? Explain this to me, because we'll always have that fourth quarter against the Ravens, and we'll always have that Bills game. But how stupid is everything we're doing when the Panthers of Carolina started off 3-0 once, like the Dolphins did? They just fired Matt Rule. And the Dolphins, 5 games in, quarter of the season, are playing a game where Waddle and Hill are questionable going in and brain damage to the second quarterback on the first play. Like, what are the odds? Could you bet that?
Allegedly.
Well, right. Not brain damage. Overreaction, overcorrection to the original underestimation as they make up the rules as they go along, because all of this is unscientific. And basically football is now where the cell phone industry was when we all had cell phones but not towers, and we relied on cell phones but not all of them worked correctly. Football's in a place where it's too big, and they're just making up the rules as they go along.
Dolphin fans just need to eat this Teddy Bridgewater thing. Like a week ago, we had the complete opposite of this where we almost killed a guy. Can we just accept he has a concussion? He'll be back when he's back.
It's a sort of a karmic L, as it were.
But we can't just be the people that last week we're talking about too, and now be like, come on, this is bullshit. He should be able to play.
But all of it's bullshit. It's all random. It's all we're all sitting here judging these microscopic inches that decide all of these games, and then it's the judgment call of did someone actually rough Tom Brady or not? And it's just
they did not.
I know, but it's just an assortment of stupidities, is it not? Like you're watching, we're engulfed and entranced by all of it, but almost all of it is totally nonsense.
Are you suggesting we take the dresses off, Dan?
Aikman did that last night while Aikman sounded concussed a couple of times last night.
Aikman was one of the more concussed quarterbacks of our lifetimes.
That's correct. And during the game, he was getting the teams wrong, and he had Frank Clark playing for the Raiders.
Yeah, Aikman kind of does that. It's been alleged that Aikman stopped caring quite a few years ago, where he's just like, I know everything I need to know. There wasn't a big celebration for when Mahomes tied his passing record. I was disappointed by that.
Did you guys see the stat? Because I know Mike sure did some of this yesterday, but Joshua Briscoe says Mahomes has now thrown 100% of Aikman's touchdowns in 41% of Aikman's games. 41% of Aikman's games. Can you guys tell me? I was trying to think about this. I don't remember Brady's Patriots being this, but maybe it's just because they were never down 17-0. What's the last team like the Chiefs where they're down 17-0 and you'd bet them in game to come back because you don't want to be on the other side of the Chiefs coming back against you? Like, what's the last?
Cousins, Vikings,
Dolphins, Ravens.
What is the last team that you guys looked at and said, that team is so overwhelming offensively in that sport where everybody's even, but I know that one team is better at offense than everyone else, and I expect them to score 30 points, and sometimes they do it. It feels constipated when Travis Kelce has just 4 touchdowns because he's got it on 25 yards, and he didn't have much of a game except for the 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, a set that actually surprised me last night was Patrick Mahomes' biggest regular season comeback. We know that he's had some big ones in the postseason, famously against the Houston Texans. But your mind wants to go to some of the great offenses you've ever seen, but I'm not really sure if the greatest show on turf was ever really down. So I would say the last team that you could count on making a run if you got up big on them with regularity was the let Russ cook Seahawks of a couple of years ago. They were kind of mediocre, but he would just probably change all the plays and just spin out of any pressure, and he'd always make it a game late.
I had the Raiders plus 7.5. Did anyone else have that? And like me, I was just like, they can't not cover this. At the beginning, I'm like, we're up 17-0, even though they blew it, and it got scary. Yeah. I want that 2-point conversion was huge. So I just remember feeling so scared. Late in that quarter.
I'm surprised you bet against the Chiefs. I'm terrified. I never want to bet against them.
I'm just taking points now. I'm just taking points. That's it.
Well, that's actually not bad. That's not bad.
That's it. You giving me points? I don't know what's going to happen. I'll take the points.
Sometimes that means you're going to be betting the Texans every weekend, which I refuse to do on principle, even when they win. I will not bet on the Texans. The reason I bring up the thing with Bridgewater, though, like obviously, correct? We're all watching this, and you can watch it and credibly say, oh, nobody actually knows what they're doing here.
Yeah, but you guys are all the people that don't know what you're doing here that had plenty of opinions last week.
But we're not in charge of it, Mike. We're not in charge of it.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're in charge of the content that goes out over this show.
We're not.
You're part of the.
We're not
you're
in
part of the
charge.
media.
We're not in charge of governing this. We're not in charge of keeping players safe. And
yes, you are.
Now you've got Tony Dungy. We're not, Mike.
I understand what you're saying, that you're not actually in charge, but the entire media had a field day 2 weeks ago.
That's the reason for the overcorrection of this weekend, where Tony Dungy is saying this isn't football. What we're watching isn't football. But it's because they're making up the rules as they go along.
Yeah, but you wanted to make up the rules as they went along. When you saw Tua, everybody had the exact same reaction that Thursday night, where they coupled what they thought was certainly a concussion the previous Sunday. You guys all wanted this, and now you're here. How many times have you seen an instance where Tua, a guy gets up, stumbles, you think he's concussed, he's not, he comes back and on a short week on a primetime game, has his fingers seized up. I'll wait once. And now we've changed an entire protocol, and you have Teddy Bridgewater getting pulled out of a game when he's not concussed.
One of the many reasons that it's stupid is Braxton Berrios was on his knee for a minute in the end zone after being hit the other day, and there's brain damage all over the field. And we're doing it with the quarterbacks. We're doing it with the famous guys. The overcorrection comes when one of the guys who isn't disposable is the one who gets hurt, just like they changed the rules when Tom Brady was hurt to make it so that the quarterback is playing a totally different game. But what happens when you simply can't protect these people? When you're not a third of the way through the seasons and the Dolphins now have 2 alleged brain damage incidents, both of them seemingly diagnosed incorrectly by all of us at home, and are on their 3rd string quarterback 5 games in.
But they are protecting them better. Look, just use preseason as an example. Training camps, head injuries were down 50% because everybody was wearing those oversized helmet protectors over their normal helmets. They're doing the best they can with a sport that is inherently dangerous. If you don't think head trauma is going to happen, regardless of every safety precaution that they take, then just don't watch football. We all know what we're watching. We all know what we're supporting. We all know that no matter what we say in front of these microphones, and no matter how horrified we are when it seizes right in our face with fingers that can't move, we still want to go back and watch the very next play. It's football.
This does not have a solution, and you say it's safer, but it'll never be safe. Period. It can be safer, and they will keep trying to make it safer, but Tony Dungy is saying that what he's watching this weekend's not football you're ending up with. They keep showing the play right now. Chris Jones called for roughing the passer when he had the football, when it's a great play at any other time in human history.
But that's the thing, though, is that you're trying to strike this delicate balance of people freak out. They're showing a fan with his veins.
Chiefs visor guy had a moment last night.
Pulsating because the game isn't rough enough, and then when the game gets too rough, people we are emotionally dealing with trauma on both sides. And I think for me, what happened with Teddy Bridgewater was not an overcorrection; it was just a correction. And I do think that if you are being too safe with head injuries, you're being appropriately safe, because we know the impacts of double impact syndrome. We know how dangerous this can be. And so for me, the notion that this is an overcorrection, we can't diagnose a concussion in real time. It's impossible. They have tests. They don't always work. And so you pull the guy out of the game because you don't want a guy to have 2 concussions in an hour. He might die.
This is the reason it is an overcorrection, because if that's the standard that you apply on Bridgewater and you try to apply it consistently all over the field, your 53-man roster is not big enough. You're going to have 14 guys walking off the field every week. If you're applying what you're doing to the quarterback all over the field and you're actually monitoring in a way that suggests that any of this can actually be safe.
But so I sit back and I wait and I see what the reaction is and I see the protocol. Okay, if anybody loses their balance and appears as obviously concussed as Tua did when he passed all the concussion tests against the Buffalo Bills, but whatever. If you stumble, you're like Naheem Hines on Thursday, fine, pull him out. Then you have something that happens to Teddy Bridgewater, where we're still watching the video trying to find out where he stumbles. And everyone's still holding on to the language of he stumbled. At most, what you see is him trying to regain feeling in his fingers if you want to draw that conclusion. What do you do with that? because he did not stumble flatly.
Mike, I think the protocol right now this weekend in reaction to what happened with Tua was just, does it look bad? Is it going to bring us more questions?
But did that look bad?
I mean, it looked like a bad hit. And at this point, I'm used to a quarterback ends up getting thrown down. I'm used to seeing a flag. They've actually corrected that part. Over the last 5 years, if a quarterback gets hit violently, I'm expecting to see a flag.
But I agree with Whitty. If we're going to have these two extremes, I'll go with the safer side for the players, right? I'd rather be angry.
But you will. Now, right up until it costs you a playoff game or this entire season because you're starting your third-string quarterback all season or fifth-string quarterback. Who have the Dolphins brought in? Who do they have brain ready for their next game?
Even if it angers me, I'm still with Whitty. Like, we should be making this decision. Like, yeah, I might be annoyed and that will suck, but it's better than what happened to Tua.
That's what you say now after a couple of weeks. That wasn't the reaction in real time when we mocked the Twitter doctors, and it will not be the reaction when a playoff game gets cost because of it. It just won't be. We are not there yet. We will not be there anytime soon. So, Mike, I'm not if my voice sounds indignant, I just don't know what to do. They're making up the rules as they go along, and we all have opinions in the moment because it seems like they know a little more than we do on information. But I want to stop you on what you said. You said whatever. The NFLPA and the NFL agree, and they don't agree on much of anything these days, that the Dolphins handled things correctly. The NFLPA fired the doctor, had to come up with a reason. The NFLPA wants its player protected, so they fired the doctor. That now everyone says the protocol worked correctly, except they just took him for his word on what was happening with his back, and they probably should have examined his back. But together, they said they're changing all of the rules to protect the players, but that the protocol was followed. They're not lying about that, no matter how much distrust you have, right? You don't distrust everybody here so much that when two entities that don't agree, one of which is entrusted with protecting the players, that you don't believe them when they say the protocols were followed.
Well, I read the results of the investigation, the concussion investigation, and if you were just to grade it on the merits of the protocol, Tua did not have a concussion against the Buffalo Bills. He didn't. Now, the NFLPA took exception to the neurologist following the protocols and reading several other signs that were out there beyond the protocols, and they exercised their right to terminate the independent neurologist. But if you actually look at the protocol, there's still no evidence outside of what we saw with the stumble that Tua was concussed against the Buffalo Bills. Why I'm saying whatever is I know what I'm watching. I know it's football. It's constant head trauma. Those people are choosing a job that will forever change their lives. Kind of like Joe Burrow said. They know what they're getting into, and I know what I'm doing and supporting by watching it and by paying my money to watch it. I'm in part drawn to the violence. I don't want to see anybody seriously hurt, but at the same time, what am I going to do? Boycott the sport? No, I love football too much. This is my guilty pleasure. What happened to Teddy Bridgewater is going to happen again if they keep this consistent protocol, and it's going to happen in an important game. Now, if you're a Dolphin fan and you want to hold that line, I'm curious to see how it happens come season's end. And you have Skylar Thompson out there. I don't believe you, is what I'm saying. I don't believe you're going to be cool with this protocol, taking somebody out who isn't concussed because that was a bad hit. It's football. I do think it's an overcorrection. And I do think it was an overcorrection specific to the Miami Dolphins because of what discourse they introduced 2 weeks ago. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not. Because I think it's going to have crucial impacts to a season in which, if you have players breaking their bodies, if you have players making that sacrifice, if you have players inherently taking part in a sport that is dangerous, I don't think they're cool with just taking somebody out because it looked bad. They know the sport is violent.
Mike sounds almost as emotional as that referee last night when the Chiefs fans scared the shit out of him. Did you hear that guy? I mean, he was just like,
his voice was trembling.
He was just like, please tell me a call that doesn't go against the Chiefs. Good. Okay. It was literally rattled.
It was a terrible call. It was a terrible call, and it was a bad call on the Falcons. But that's the NFL. I actually understood where Boger was going.
Mike, but that's the NFL. Again, we are microanalyzing every decision. The Raiders on fourth, and do you do that against the Chiefs? Are you scared of Mahomes? When they went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 35 earlier in that game. And we're analyzing every little thing. And then the one call at the end of Saints-Falcons that decides Saints-Falcons, that all of us are like, what is that call? That's a terrible call. Or the Chiefs game, that's a terrible call. Does it not seem silly to you when all of these games are a hair's difference?
Come on, the Falcons aren't beating the Bucs. All right, give them that call. Marcus Mariota is not erasing a 3-score deficit to beat Tom Brady at home. They could have given them the ball right there. They could have moved it to the 10-yard line. Let's relax with assuming that the Atlanta Falcons would have beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of that call.
It's awfully
convenient.
No, I don't assume that Atlanta's going to beat the Bucs.
No,
I assume
you know what
that
happens?
they're going
Pick
to
six.
cover and go over.
That's what
That's what I need to happen. I need the Bucs not to have the ball anymore.
A lot of people suspending a lot of disbelief for assuming that the game was lost on this call when one of the teams is the Atlanta Falcons.
But again, the Falcons were right there with the Bucs because everybody in that league is, you're watching at the end of Sunday, 1 o'clock hour, and of course the Chargers are coming back on a 2-touchdown deficit. Of course, somehow the Bears are up on the Vikings.
That was surprising.
In the fourth quarter. No, but and of course the Giants are coming back against the Packers in London. If everyone is that close and we are doing all of these analyses, and if you're betting home dogs this season, you love having the Commanders late against the Titans because the Titans are clearly going to cough that up, right? And then after the game, Rivera's asked, what's the difference between your team and every other team in the NFC East? And he says something you never hear a coach say, and he just says quarterback. As his team is at the bottom of the NFC East, and everyone is clustered together. And all you really know is that so far is that the Chiefs and the Eagles and the Bills are good.
But you say I'm microanalyzing. I know a lot of people were, but during the Tua thing, I just kind of stood to the sideline and let everybody have a rock fight. And I played both sides. The Tua thing was unprecedented fairly for a sport that has people getting hit in the head constantly. When have we ever seen a perfect storm like that? So if people want to make a specific ruling that if a player gets up and stumbles and faints and has to be held up kind of, and even though he passes all the concussion protocol, you want to hold him out of the game? I'm good with that, I guess, but I think all of it's kind of silly because I know what I'm watching on Sundays and Mondays.
Just because we know we're watching, though, doesn't mean we shouldn't take extra precaution when it comes to their brains.
And I'm good.
Right.
You took extra precaution in the event if a quarterback falls on the floor, his head hits a turf, like it did with Tua, and he stumbles, I'm totally fine taking them out of the game.
But the Bridgewater thing.
But the Bridgewater thing is not that.
Right.
The Bridgewater thing was not that.
I'm with you, but it's just hard to make that argument a week after the Tua thing.
Why?
It is.
Why?
Because it just looks so bad. Like
I
optics
don't
has
care
to
how
matter.
it looks like. We're having a discussion. It's football.
But this is all because of how it looked like.
Precisely.
You ever get in a fight with your wife and the next day you're like extra nice?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
It's called overcompensating.
Okay, but now
Yes.
your wife is married to Skylar Thompson. Enjoy.
She'd love that. My wife, I mean.
I love last night Troy Aikman giving credit to Chiefs fans for booing. He's like, these are smart fans. These fans know, and it's just like they're just booing. They're just furious at the officials.
But ravenously. That
right,
was,
but extra booing. It's like, oh, that's extra smart. That's smart booing. You hear that booing? That's smart booing right there.
They found it from within themselves to in the start of the second half. I think after the Chiefs had a possession, when the Raiders returned to the field, they were remembered from 20 minutes ago. Oh yeah, we got to keep booing, boo, and they kept that was as angry as I've ever seen a crowd when the referee has come out and said, I was just following the rules.
Yeah.
The rules say if you land on the quarterback with your full body weight, that's roughing the passer. That's in the rule book.
I actually understand that rule because there's been collarbone injuries with it. And I think that to a degree that's what happened with the Jarrett Brady thing. But bullying works. We've seen it with public scandals. We saw it with Tua, and we saw it in that Chiefs game because there was a very friendly whistle for the Chiefs shortly thereafter that call.
We will talk about Devontae Adams at some point, pushing a cameraman. Can't be doing that. I don't know what the penalty is going to be. I am waiting for Greg Cote to catch his breath because he came in here and I can hear him breathing heavy here because he got caught up in traffic. So we haven't gotten your take as the local Homerific columnist on everything that happened with Bridgewater, Bridgewater too far as Bridgewater. You can't make that up. I was in Exuma, so I didn't see the beginning of the game because television is so hard to get out there. But what I saw was a box score in the first quarter that had Bridgewater 0 for 1 and then Skylar Thompson with a stat line. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, did the Dolphins do an okie doke? Like, did they start Bridgewater so they prepare for Bridgewater and then do a surprise of putting in?
That would have been great.
That's next level, man.
But I wasn't watching what happened. I couldn't have imagined the fictional scenario in comedy. on a night, Stugotz, he doesn't have the information for this game, but John Oliver in 30 minutes on what's happening in Iran and the strength of teenage girls in Iran going against the regime as a throwaway line for a sentence, makes a Monday Night Football joke, and then just says pretty matter-of-factly, we really shouldn't be playing that sport, should we? Like the first time they've attacked the issue, right? It's a very big
enough
issue.
of him. Seriously.
And it does make me wonder as I'm watching it, right? As you're trying to make assessments at home at the quarterback position on how brain damaged are they?
Right. Enough of Oliver. I'm tired of the redcoats telling us what we should be doing over here. Okay.
Like, I mean, the NFL is not a volunteer. It's a volunteer army. You know, you're not drafted into the NFL. You don't have to play and risk a concussion, right? I mean, that's my attitude. In exchange for a very lucrative salary and a fairly short career, you take the risk of a concussion. Now, they're trying to make the sport safer, and we saw that with that sack that probably shouldn't have been a penalty. You know, the guy, when he landed on the quarterback, Chris Jones, he didn't even have anywhere to go. He had, like, players all around him.
Well, I imagine people would accuse John Oliver of virtue signaling and all the Twitter fights that happen in people's mentions. But John Oliver's a big Liverpool fan, and I'm sure if you asked him in front of a live mic, knowing what his audience is, should they stop playing soccer if you invoke head trauma, he'd probably say yes, especially if you look across the youth numbers. And they've made sweeping changes to the women's game and to the U15s, I believe, in terms of being able to play the ball with your head. Certain sports are very dangerous.
Rugby comes to mind.
I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah.
Same thing with professional wrestlers. They kind of know what they're getting into. Now parents have more data than ever to make these decisions. If you get into this sport, there's a decent chance your life is forever changed. I still think you have lines outside the door to not just participate in it, but to watch it.
No doubt. I don't feel guilty as a football fan. I just don't. You know, am I enabling a violent sport that maims people? Yes, by being a fan. But again, you know, it's a volunteer army, the NFL.
So why should we feel guilty as fans for watching something that these players want to play?
Because to his hands.
So if I asked you right then, with his hands, if I'd asked you right then, what's happening with his hands?
Yeah, it was disgusting. It made me cringe. It made me question what it is I'm watching. But I've questioned what it is I'm watching before, and I'll question it again.
But you're just
I'm still going to watch it.
But you're questioning just to say you're questioning it. You're not actually questioning it. You're saying,
well, that's not fair. You're not in my head.
You just said it. You just said it.
I said I'm going to question it again, and I'm going to watch it again.
Right.
As long as players are going out there every Sunday and giving me my entertainment and allowing me to bet, I'm going to watch.
You just said, I will feel no guilt about this. And I said, and if I ask you when the hands are splayed in front of the face, and your response was, yeah, I questioned it then, while not actually questioning it. You're not.
This is a human condition, and I back him up. He did feel guilty. Stop questioning him if he felt guilty.
Exactly.
He's a man. He doesn't want to give you that satisfaction.
That's
he knows
right.
what he's watching.
Thank you, Mike.
When to his hand sees, he was disgusted, revolted, asked himself some questions, and primarily, should I hop on the Bengals live?
Exactly.
Because this sport is awesome.
Opportunity.
Let me ask you a question here, because you've said more than any other phrase here over this hour, I know what I'm watching, okay? I'm curious if that's what you would say, like walking through these nursing homes where these 50 and 60-year-olds have lost their mind, pre-pension and these kind of safety things. Like, do you and do they?
Yeah, when I follow Steve Mongo McMichael and I see him bedridden and I see it CTE, or when I'm crying watching the Steve Gleason documentary, and when I'm donating to Steve Gleason's foundation, yes, I feel very sad for their condition. And at the same time, when it's 7 hours of commercial-free football And it's a witching hour when wins become losses and losses become wins. I'm at the edge of my seat, and so are you.
It can be both.
So is it can be.
It can
so
be.
let's stop pretending that we're one or the other.
But who's pretending? It's just
A lot of crisis actors out there, Dano.
Yep.
A lot of them.
who's pretending though? It is too big to fail, a commerce center that we have gotten content out of forever. Like, who's pretending anything other than we love this thing that continually produces things that we hate?
Right. And some of the controversy now is not just the game that we love, it's the controversy over the game that we love. It's a Tua decision. It's a decision for Tua and his family and anybody else who is severely concussed. Not my decision.
Yeah, okay, you say it's not your decision, but I put it in front of you now with somebody you actually care about, not with your regional identity and pride, but somebody you actually care about. Because it's Whitlock out here and the original concussion guy that they made a film about saying Tua should just quit. And they're the extremists saying, what are you talking about? No quarterback at this age would quit, but they're saying just quit. Ricky Williams is saying maybe football's not for you, too, and he doesn't mean it as an indictment. He's just saying, man, you're small and you're getting hurt and your fingers shouldn't do that in front of your face, and it's a couple of concussions possibly, and you get ragdolled pretty good. Maybe it's not for you. Make Tua someone you actually care about. Are you coming to him and saying quit? Because I feel like we all might.
I might.
And we would all understand that the answer would be no, but I don't believe we actually know all the consequences. And the last people I'm asking about knowing consequences are 20-year-old athletes.
What's the solution? If Tua were my son, which he is, by the way, because I love him so much,
Exactly.
would I tell him to not
Day
play
one guy.
football? Probably not.
Yep.
I'm not playing football because I'm not talented. I played spring football. It hurt me too much. I didn't want to play it. But I love watching other people play it. My daughter, I love soccer. I play goalkeeper in my Sunday league. I would love for my daughter to play soccer and like the position that I do. But there is several studies out there that say women goalkeepers that are playing on these artificial turfs get higher rates of cancer. Not going to let her play goalkeeper, man. It's too dangerous. It's my decision. If my daughter really wants to fight me when she's 15 years old, which is probably way too late to make any sort of career in the thing, and wants to play goalkeeper, we can have that discussion. But there's data out there. The times are different now than they were in the 1980s or 70s, and I totally understand why those players sued, give them all the money in the world, why people feel hoodwinked and bamboozled because of what the sport was before and jacked up segments and all that. Game's different now. We know what we're getting into.
I feel like a piece of shit because I let my daughter play goalie
Oh,
for
that's
an entire
terrible.
Little League season.
Yeah. Should have been a sweeper.
Real gas?
Well, she was good
real
on
grass?
Grass?
She was
Yeah,
good.
it was,
Yeah.
it was
You're
not
fine.
artificial.
Okay,
One
if
song.
you're on
Okay.
grass,
You
you're
want to
okay.
avoid the tire bits.
Yeah.
Why is goalie more susceptible to cancer than the other?
Yeah, I was
Because,
wondering
uh,
that.
You're
Yeah.
falling on there's like artificial surfaces have like these bits of rubber
Yeah, I
that
love
allow
those.
it to play like a normal field, and so if you're falling on that all the time, there's
If you're constantly
Women-
on it,
boy.
or
Women
on
are
it
far
more.
more
Right.
Women
I
are
used
far
to
more
play on that.
inclined to be playing on those artificial turfs with the ground up tire bits that are carcinogenic.
Yeah, those are bad. Bring back AstroTurf.
Exactly.
That's right.
If Tua, I'm wondering from Dolphin fans, if Tua announced today that he was going to walk away, what do you think the reaction would be?
I mean, you couldn't have anything. Who could have anything negative to say?
He
about
would be
that?
applauded.
Oh, people would, Chris.
My reaction-
He's making a decision for his life.
You don't think
we saw it unfold on national television? How could you possibly say anything negative about
We saw
that?
this with Andrew Luck. He didn't come out and articulate that, but we assumed this bright Stanford educated guy took that as data when he made his informed decision.
Mike, I don't understand how it is that you're arriving in the middle of an unprecedented 2 straight weeks of controversy involving brain-damaged Dolphin quarterbacks. We knew what we're getting into when on the extremes at that position, the NFL doesn't know what it's getting into. Like, the NFL is looking at this and is like, holy shit, that was bad. We've got a concussion settlement and we got Tua out there with those fingers splayed. And this is the stuff Mark Cuban was talking about when he said the sport can't keep growing. At some point, it's going to explode upon itself. So we've asked before the question of, if someone dies on the field, how does it have to happen to stop the machine I don't understand how you keep arriving at, we all know what this is, when we're in the center of something, talking about a Dolphin quarterback issue that hasn't existed in the history of the sport anywhere, where we've got 2 straight weeks of concussion brain damage controversy.
That has happened in the history of the sport before. We just haven't reacted the same way. Like, it happened just this season where you have players playing back-to-back week with concussions. Like, this has happened. If anything, I'd argue that the sport is safer now than it has been in the last 2 decades. It's just the reaction is vastly different than it was before. People get concussed every single day. Like, the Thursday that Tua got that concussion where we saw his fingers, that Sunday, I'm sure at least 50 people were concussed, and we didn't have any reaction to it because we didn't see the video of the fingers. So it's not like this is more dangerous or that these has been crazier injuries than we've ever seen. Just the reaction is different to it.
T. Higgins suffered a violent concussion against the Jets the same day that Tua lost his balance. And T. Higgins played that Thursday night too. Had a great game.
Right. Yeah.
There was a clip going around of Tom Brady that it was like kind of viral, where it was like Tom Brady's played long enough where you've seen this hit and he just gets absolutely rocked. Ran like 2 yards, got rocked, his helmet flew off. Totally fine, no penalty, nothing. To the point where now that little rap became a roughing the passer. Like, football's changed, but people are not getting hit nearly as hard as they used to, and there's more protections in place now. But the outrage is such that people are like, I can't believe this is the worst. And it's like, no, like, go watch film from 20 years ago. See how, like, the intros to Sunday Night Football used to be, where they were highlighting these violent hits. Yeah, like, things are safer now than they've ever been.
And what do you do with me presenting you with this, as you say, things are safer than they've ever been, and you objected earlier in the segment correctly, saying that this is all about optics, that's all it is. If I keep telling you again and again that the NFL doesn't actually care how things are, they paid $1 billion to settle this. They care at every turn how things look. The last 2 weeks, everything is about, we have not seen the concussion that makes one of the frail, non-disposable guys, the fingers do that. I haven't seen it. Yeah, we know brain damage all over the field. We don't have to deal with any of it. We don't have to see any of it. We don't have to have any of the ringing in the head in retirement. We don't have to have any of the ringing in the head that week. We don't see any of it. So as soon as we see it, the NFL goes, oh my God, they can't see that. Let's stop them from seeing that. And let's hope that that doesn't happen again. Let's hope that we don't get somebody paralyzed or some other horror where it's not quite as hidden and Mike Ryan can't quite say as easily, I know what I'm watching at every turn, even though 50 of the concussions and all the brain damage, you don't know what you're watching, because we don't know. If I told you there were 1,000 brain damages last night, you don't know.
But the thing is, 2 generations ago, I was watching the game where Darryl Stingley was paralyzed right on the field. A generation ago, Nick Bonacone's son was paralyzed in a college game. That's that's arguably worse than a concussion because it's immediate and it's lifelong, and we go on. Nothing stops football. And you know, every linebacker who's paralyzed, there's going to be 1 million in line behind him. If Tua retires tomorrow because of this, we're all going to applaud his bravery. You know what? 100 quarterbacks are in line saying, I want his job.
And there's no argument, Greg. Yeah. It is worse, yes.
Okay.
But just the optics. We've seen guys carted off the field before. Right. We've never seen a guy's fingers do that.
I actually think we've seen it at a higher clip. I said on the postgame show, spinal and neck injuries are having a moment right now, and they're so happy for head trauma discussion because we've seen more people put out on a stretcher and ambulanced off because of a neck injury this season than I can remember.
But also, these whatever protocols they are doing is not actually solving the problem. There is still a chance that even after everything that they've done, that we see a Tua finger situation, that we see paralysis, that we see something truly terrible happen, and nothing that the NFL can do in fixing their concussion diagnoses, in changing their protocol. They just have to wake up every Sunday morning and pray to the God that they pray to that nothing that devastating happens that day. Because that's the only thing that's stopping them from having a real crisis, because they can't solve the very nature of their sport.
Well, they limit it, right? By doing like helmet to helmet targeting, by the way that they are flagging plays for unnecessary roughness. Like, they're trying to limit it, right? But it's still going to happen. It's just not going to happen as frequently if you change the way people can be hit. But then people are outraged, as we're kind of doing today with this isn't football anymore. So we're kind of arguing both sides, right? 2 weeks ago, we were outraged by the Tua thing, and now we're outraged by the calls that are not allowing us to see people actually get hit. So, like, I don't know what the solution to any of this is.
No, there is no solution. And I do wonder when you say, because the game is indeed safer, but I do ask you to consider.
I mean, look, let me clarify that. The game is not safer because you're still doing it, but the game now, with the rules in place, are limiting the opportunities if you're following the rules for as many of those injuries.
It is safer than in the 80s when Lawrence Taylor was tackling Bernie Kosar on concrete and none of these rules and none of this knowledge was in play.
Right.
But I ask you how much of that safety gets diluted by the University of Florida having a sophomore, Desmond Watson, who's 415 pounds.
He's a unit.
Legislate that out of the sport.
really is.
He's got a donk.
Violent sports have weight classes.
This is a game of football. Guys, it's irrefutable. If you want to say that they're lying about the data, go on ahead and be that conspiracy theorist. It is safer. It is not a safe sport. What Chris Whittingham just did was slightly unfair, because if you watch a game from 2007 on NFL Network, you see them get a little extra. You're not seeing all the instances where a player does the math in his head, like, oh, this is a penalty. Oh, this is player safety. Oh, this is how the game is evolved. There are so many times in watching a football game that I'm like, wow, that defender has that guy dead to rights. And when I was growing up, that dude would be knocked out, and you don't see it anymore. They have changed. You're not going to see the lower third on NFL. Patrick Mahomes avoids incredible head trauma because of new rules, because he avoided it. You're not going to see that. It's a no-win position for a sport that all really does. This is the one thing. I mean, you could say like the race norming, but the head trauma has been the thing surrounding this sport. And I do think that they do care about their players. And I do think that they, to a degree, they hear these complaints in their collective bargaining agreement, and they understand that they want to make the sport safer. Not just for them, but we saw with the Play Football Initiative, they don't want parents to stop putting their kids in this pipeline because they want the sport to continue to thrive. They do care about it. Safer, but not safe.
Are you trying to end football again, Dan?
I never want football to
I mean, the Jets are 3-2. They're just getting good.
Seriously. Dolphins have a winning record. Wow. How about that? Everybody knows there's a hazardous to your health warning label on football, but Roger Goodell can look in the camera right now and say our sport is safer than it's ever been, and we're going to continue to make it safer, and he ain't lying.
They're going to have 4 teams in London. I heard Goodell talking about expansion and
No, they're
saying
going to have a European division.
yes,
It's crazy.
Get out of here.
a European division.
Those
where,
Sunday 9:30 games have been nice.
Yeah, I love those.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
They've been great.
I mean, the
last 2
Packer-Giant
weeks.
game was a good game.
Yeah,
but
the Viking Saints one too.
Yeah, yeah.
A
Breakfast
little
at
morning
Tottenham.
football.
Yeah.
it's a little too early. I mean,
Tottenham. Breakfast at Tottenham.
Football from 9:30 in the morning until 11:30 at
it
night.
doesn't
is-
feel good.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It, that
It,
that
it makes the Sunday night game feel a little extra gross.
I don't know how the people listening to this absorb this, but 9:30. If you've done 9:30 to 9:30 on a Sunday and have to work the next day, almost no matter what you've done, like there has to be something on you that doesn't feel quite right. Even if you won a bunch of money gambling, maybe it's just that you're sad that it's over, that it's over.
Well,
for
you
the
got
day.
Monday night,
but
though,
I
Dana.
don't know how football fans go to sleep on Sunday nights as a rule. I don't know, like if you're still wired. That one last night is your Monday night game. I don't know how you guys do all of this. This is not something. I don't ever feel good at the end of 9:30 to 9:30. It's no matter.
it's impossible.
Morally or physically?
All of it. All of it. Whatever.
You do if you had Travis Kelce on Monday night. I'll
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
right.
wow, that was
baby.
big, man.
Wow.
All he does is catches touchdowns.
Fantasy machine.
He is great.
That was the most pathetic woo
I know, it
I've
really
ever
was.
heard. That
Yeah.
you had nothing. You had
I
nothing
know.
in it. Your voice is shot.
It's wheezing.
Mike Ryan, are your fingernails painted
Wheezing,
black?
call me.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I didn't want to ask.
Yeah. I had a birthday party that was themed, and I still don't have nail polish remover in my house, and it led to a tricky scenario for me Saturday at the Canes game when I was with our co-founder and a lot of movers and shakers in the president's box, and they were all looking at my hands, and I have no way to take them off right now. I actually hope Hildy
They're
actually has
stores.
them. I know, but I overslept because I had my birthday party on Friday. By
Right.
the time I woke up, I had to get straight to the
It's
game.
Tuesday.
I understand now.
Right.
But
But what happened
Saturday was a
yesterday?
priority.
I mean,
Now you're in too deep.
Well, Sunday was the NFL. I wasn't leaving my house.
Monday?
And yesterday I was finishing Dahmer, and I just had some.
look.
Dahmer.
It's fine. It's a look. You kind of like the look.
It's
That's
a good
fine.
look. Yeah,
It's
I
not a-
mean, I
yeah,
went- I
you don't have
already-
to justify yourself to us.
Right,
Doesn't
I'm
matter.
already on the downhill side of the slope. Like, it had to be done Saturday for me. If I already survived shaking hands with the people that I shook hands with on Saturday, nothing is worse than that.
You should have found that guy who dresses in full shoulder pads, like a full uniform. It's like, hey man, can I borrow your gloves? And you just show up
Yeah.
in the president's
You
box
should.
wearing football gloves.
You'll be stared at less wearing gardening gloves.
I did I did arrange for somebody to meet up with me at the tailgate and give me nail polish remover, and then they just never showed up.
I thank
Like
you.
everyone else.
My Nicaraguan friend Joel, he just never came through.
That's
Wait,
it.
what time was the tailgate at?
The tailgate. I was at the tailgate.
It was like
at-
24 hours
I was at the
CVS's.
tailgate at like 2:00, and my friend was supposed to meet me. You know, Chris can back this up because it was
No,
certified in the
sent
group
He
chat.
sent a picture
He
in the
was-
chat of the nail polish.
He was
remover.
supposed to bring it to me. I sent him a pin. He never showed up. And then Saturday was in the box. And why I still have him right now, I understand being skeptical. I needed it in time for Saturday's meeting and shaking those hands. If I didn't get it by then, like, okay, it can't get worse than that. So F it. I'll
Well,
just
I'm
keep
glad
them.
you mentioned the UM game because I don't.
I'm
know-
not.
Barry Jackson is writing, shouldn't you be getting more immediately for $80 million
Yep.
on Cristobal? It's largely the same team. They have added, what is it, like 30 new players. So it's not the same team as last year, but they had enough guys returning. And Virginia Tech allowed a 320-yard rusher over the course of the weekend.
He's good. The kid from Pitt?
Well, the kid.
I can't pronounce his name.
But
I
Pitt
mean-
has been doing this for a while.
Israel?
Have they not just given 40 carries to a guy? I feel like
Is
they've
he?
been doing that this entire
Since Tony
century.
Dorsett.
Yeah, more.
I am a tough loss. You like that they got the quarterback online. This is going to be a process, but I'll wear it. That's not what the talk was entering this season. The talk was still, yes, they have enough. With this new coaching staff, with the coaches that they're bringing in, with the people that they add on the portal, they have enough to compete for Charlotte. It certainly wasn't about losing at Middle Tennessee State. If you make the Middle Tennessee State game a win, I think we can all look at the balance of the season and be like, okay, progress. A one-score loss against North Carolina, which is one of the few teams in the ACC that you look at and you're like, yeah, they might be
You
more
can't do
talented.
that. You can't make Middle Tennessee State a win. You
No.
can't.
I'm saying no, but that's the egregious part. That's the unforgivable part of this season. But I would say if you looked at the season as a whole, losing by one score at Texas A&M, okay, fine. We don't have a talent advantage there. If you look at the recruiting, North Carolina has actually recruited better than the University of Miami over the last few years. You say we've lost. They actually own us in the all-time series. Okay. You shake it off. But the Middle Tennessee State game for me is one of those that you'll never forget. It's an unforgivable loss. And I'm happy that the quarterback's coming back online, but this season is falling way short of expectations, and everybody in that program would tell you. They'd be lying to you. I understand everybody wants to bang the
Well,
drum
but
right now. It's a process,
but
process.
Let's do this another way, though. Instead of the macro of whether or not I think reasonable people can understand that Miami just got into the $1 million game 5 games ago. That's going to take a minute, and you may want, and Miami certainly always wants, without patience, immediate results. To me, the more disarming thing, and this is why Whittingham was out after 3 games, is the trying to win with Justin Herbert 20-17 and the conservative offense stuff. And I'm not going to open it up. And I don't know why Bryles didn't come down here, but after 5 games, I do wonder whether it's because the approach is so conservative on offense that it's not what other people want to run. Because
You mentioned Bryles. Mario didn't want to play the way that Bryles did. It's not that Bryles didn't choose us. Mario didn't choose Bryles. That's not the way that it was put out there in the media by Bryles. Credit to him. That's the way Mario wants to play. And I did find it funny that Woody said that he's out. I want to see Tua's offense. This is the exact same offense Tua ran. You just don't have the horses. You don't have guys breaking tackles and going 70 yards down the field because they're faster than everybody else right now. You don't have the guys to run it. I'm glad that they made the adjustment. I'm not happy with what Gaddis said after the game, saying we threw it too much. Shit, that was the only thing that was working, it would appear. It's a riddle looking at that stat line from Tyler Van Dyke and seeing how we only scored 24 points. The plays are so slow developing, by that goal line, it is an atrocity. To be able to watch Kansas City, which has some of the most innovative goal line calls you've ever seen, and watch what Josh Gaddis does inside that goal line, it's the polar opposite of football right now. I don't know how you... Thank God Tyler Van Dyke threw for almost 500 yards, because now we've all seen it. Despite the wide receiver and the Restrepo talk and all that, we know what he's capable of. Let him go. Do what he is good at. And for God's sakes, beat Virginia Tech, because this program needs a win. My football team hasn't won in a month.
No credit to the Heels defense, huh? Bend but don't break. I mean, classic Mac Brown. Yeah,
Eccles is really good.
Their defense, though, came into the game 106th in the country in yards per carry defense. That's
Miami
bad.
Miami was a
bad
4-point
defense.
favorite because North Carolina will allow 60 to anybody.
Well, because, I mean, they could have lost. But for me, it's the fact that you actually held their offense relatively in check. That's a damn good offense of a true freshman quarterback who I entered the game with 19 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Oh, May's good.
Like he's a really good young quarterback. He's probably going to be a pro. And Van Dyke, actually, to be fair to Mario Cristobal, they actually did open up the offense. And it looked pretty good from a passing standpoint because it allowed Van Dyke to do what he does best. But the rushing offense, for me, it's the regression from within season because I thought they ran the ball pretty well at Texas A&M, and you can't run against freaking North Carolina.
And if you look at Pro Football Focus grades, Parrish is one of the best running backs in the nation.
Mike, do you think Mario has any sort of regret from this standpoint? You go out on a game, regardless of who you're playing, what your record is. You play at Oregon, there's 80,000 people there. Packed house, screaming, loud, ready to root their team on. 30 minutes before that game, there were 15 people there. Someone sent a screenshot. I'm serious.
There were guys, 50,000 people in that stadium is not going to look good. There were 50,000 people in that stadium. Yes, someone sent a picture of the Canes Tunnel, which is right next to the band section and the worst student section on the planet. I understand.
The worst section.
It's 50,000 people.
You know what's funny?
If you get 50,000 people at some of the other great stadiums in this country, no one says a goddamn word.
Correct.
It's 50,000 fucking people.
Oh.
We're always going to do this shit with the stadium. It looks bad.
Can we stop with the freaking North Carolina, by the way? Because, like, the Canes have lost them 4 games in a row. Like,
I'm with you. I'm with
Carolina's
you.
They've got their number.
Miami is now just another ACC program. They're just another ACC program that can lose to anybody. When I say freaking North Carolina, it's because they entered the game with a terrible defense.
Boykins, number 16 for North Carolina, gave you at the end of the game 3 straight upside down U's, Mike. As soon as he knelt the ball out.
They do that shit all the time. Michael Carter even did the waddle because he went to North Carolina. It's
North
just
Carolina,
what they do over there.
But they started that, did they not?
Yeah,
North Carolina
they're the
started
ones that
making
ramped
fun
that
of
shit
Miami.
up. Yeah, it's the worst. To answer Stugotz's question, I don't think he has regrets. I want to be careful with what I say. Mario knew what the challenge that was in front of him.
Let's get
Just
why
a bad
Billy's
angle,
laughing
Stugotz.
in the
It's a bad
background.
angle.
Billy's laughing.
Like you're showing me a photo. I was there. Look at the paid
let me
attendance.
see.
I was
see it.
there.
You counted them?
I'm sick of talking to folks about attendance that aren't at the
that's
fucking
not
games.
good.
I really am.
Okay.
I'm really sick of it.
Yes.
I'm really. It's not my favorite discourse. 50,000 is a well-attended game.
It is a tired conversation in Miami about fan attendance. I don't.
Now we're just doing it to mess with Mike.
Yeah,
though.
you are.
Just showing the picture.
That's just a picture of the empty stadium. That is an empty stadium.
No, that was
Confirmed.
halftime. I think that's the third quarter.
Yeah, third quarter. Yeah.
I was there too. Like that was a good crowd.
Why is there a tennis court on the field?
It is a good crowd for Miami. I will just tell you though that trying to get on internet it's a remote island, okay? And I'm trying to get football and I'm trying to do it on YouTube and my options are limited and I click on what is clearly University of Miami against North Carolina and I see the ball is being kicked off and I'm like, wow, there are a lot of people there. And then because I'm just tuning in and I see as the shot behind the kicker is just the opposite stands are full. And I'm like, and I'm looking and I'm like, that can't, and it was Georgia. It was the Georgia game, but I was confused for a moment by seeing because I don't ever see that in South Florida. Like the view from behind the kicker, unless it's a night game against a Power 5 team, that's not going to be. There's just no way. There's no way that there's going to be a crowd there that's impressive.
When the Canes are producing these hype videos, do you think they can just grab footage from the Notre Dame game because it's really the only one that I'm just trying to mess with Mike at this point. Like it's really
We all
I'm
are. Yes.
It's not obvious.
By the way, the offense isn't even the worst problem about Miami this season. Mike, do you agree?
I mean, the defense only gave up 6 points in that second half
Right.
against one of the best offenses in the nation. I'm disappointed how they came out. They don't have the guys. And for everybody that wants to
That's
point
kind
to
of a problem. They don't have the guys.
well, especially for this coach, where his whole thing is, I need to have the guys. He is a guy getter. He gets dudes.
Against Middle Tennessee, they gave up 3 75-yard passes. How does that
Get
happen?
another massive
Get
play.
their guys. Get their guys. Toledo has a cornerback.
Seriously.
Unforgivable because no matter how much you want to say talent discrepancy and you want to say, well, North Carolina's recruited better, they should have never lost a Middle Tennessee State game. I'm with you.
It's
a million times over.
They got to smuggle Bubba Bolden back onto the team.
All right.
You know, give him a different name.
No, thank God, no.
You're right.
He's better than what
Look,
they've got.
it takes time. It takes time, and sometimes it doesn't. Like right now, it doesn't look like it's taking Lincoln Riley any time because he has Caleb Williams and he's playing in the Pac-12.
We brought all his players, right?
But it did take a minute for Josh Heupel at Tennessee, and now you're seeing the seeds of those seeds grow after them putting an investment in the program, taking advantage of NIL, and starting to get guys. So hopefully a year from now, we're not having the same conversation. I'm flatly disappointed with what this season's become. Mario, everybody from the administration on down is disappointed with what the season has become. What I'm encouraged by is that some of the young guys started playing, guys like Young, guys like Skinner, even though there were some freshman mistakes made. You see that D-line. That D-line's one of the best units in the country, and that's from NFL scouts.
Right.
Daryl Jackson is an alien.
Well, the run defense is great.
They have one of the best D-line units in the nation. Some would argue top 3 unit in the nation. I want to see guys continue to fight and improve year over year, and let's lay the foundation for next year. Hugely disappointing season. I don't know what I'm going to do with these airline tickets to Charlotte.
Dan, you are so right about the Pitt running backs. It started with Dorsett, but then it went on to Curtis Martin, LaShawn McCoy, Shady, Craig Hayward, Ironhead. I mean, you're right.
They love-
running back you. I mean,
Can you guys tell me
James Conner.
what is keeping Miami from? I believe Quinyon Mitchell is his name. He had 4 interceptions this weekend, 2 of them pick sixes against Northern Illinois. What is stopping? How far are we when you say
No turnover chain.
Lincoln Riley?
No incentive to get the ball. Meanwhile, Manny Diaz's defense looks tremendous.
When you tell me
Should bring him
that
back.
Lincoln Riley moves to California with a gaggle of players
Right.
with him, how far are we removed from being able to get the Brian Kelly who not just can recruit, but the Brian Kelly who comes with his AAU team or whatever?
Well, it just happens.
I know, but
Brian Kelly's struggling out the gates. More often than not, you need time. The greatest
point
coach we've
is-
ever seen needed a minute at Alabama to get things online.
My point is, if USC can do it with Lincoln Riley, Miami,
Sure.
that's the cost. Now, Miami, that's what Cristobal needs to be. If you're the guy getter and they give you $80 million and you're not going to out-scheme anybody, if we're already playing the game and Miami's late to the game of the coach comes and he brings his own players,
Right.
that's what you're competing against.
No doubt. But I think Mike makes a good point. It can be done that way. Lincoln Riley's doing it right now at USC, but it could also be done the way Chip Kelly is doing it at UCLA, where it took him a couple of years, and now his team is 6-0, top 10 in the rankings, and they have a big game at Oregon in a couple of
Way
weeks.
more often than not, it takes a minute. It's just not what you were hoping for here in Miami because you thought with the players, especially the quarterback, and in a weak conference, in the weak, weirdest division in arguably all of the Power 5, that you could actually change your fortunes, and not even Mario could do that. Where I'm encouraged by Mario is I know that he will die if he doesn't succeed here. He will throw every ounce of him. He will prioritize this over everything in his personal life, his family life. He is obsessive about it, and he will throw every single ounce of energy he has behind turning this thing around. If he fails,
Not worth it.
no,
isn't
probably
Don't
not.
let this tear your family apart.
80
It's
million,
like,
but-
but at
just
least-
disappear for 80
But
million.
at least for 80
Not
million,
worth it.
but at least for 80 million, I understand we don't have the results just yet. You can't argue about the process right now because he's caring more about it than anyone could possibly care about.
You're putting
Unreasonably so.
that division or any division across from Illinois, Purdue, Minnesota,
Big Ten West.
Wisconsin,
Yeah, the Big Ten West.
Northwestern.
Is that leaders or legends?
I'm going to name it again, okay? Iowa, This is the worst offensive football team I've ever seen in college football. They had this weekend, they had a 15-play, punted twice, got recovered fumbles on the punts, went backwards both times, a 15-play, 75-yard field goal drive, getting the ball 3 times.
Watched a lot of Hawkeye football on vacation.
I was trying to find the game.
Why didn't you just enjoy the islands?
Listen to this division.
Sit out on the beach.
Illinois, Purdue, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Northwestern.
Iowa. Expert over here. Expert on the Iowa offense.
Are they averaging 6 points a game this season? Are they averaging 6 points a game this season?
Illinois are the only team that are ranked in that bunch. Iowa have scored 88 points in 6 games. So slightly more than single digits per game. I wonder if it's maybe against Power 5 teams. Did they have an outburst against an FCS team maybe? But they are appalling to watch.
Can I make a suggestion to Mario Cristobal, and maybe you could pass it along to him? Care less. How about that? Why don't we try caring less? Because caring this much is not working out. Just take a step back. Take your foot off the gas a little bit.
Let things happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're 2-3 now. The season not exactly what you thought. Just sling the pill a
Mike,
little bit. You know what I mean?
Agent.
Like football.
You've become an
Lane
agent
would have
for
cared
Mario
less.
Cristobal.
Care a little less.
Lane would have
See how
cared
that
less,
works.
and I think that if you put Lane Kiffin's offense here, you might be looking at a season that's undefeated presently, but I don't necessarily think it'd be sustainable. He'd probably field the very first call from David Tepper and be on the first boat out of here. But I think Mario is setting up. Yeah, I think Mario is trying to lay the foundation for sustained success so that the program can start recruiting itself. It's going to take time. I'm disappointed by that. I'm sure he's disappointed by that. I know he is. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry. I am broken by it too.
Sorry.
What are you sorry about?
Sorry, are you sorry?
Well, guys, I guess I have to care less too.
You should care less.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
It was a
Enjoy
crushing
life, Mike. It's
That's
short.
right.
It was a crushing reality after Middle Tennessee State that this isn't going to be the Lincoln Riley plan. This is going to be maybe the Dabo plan, and we'll see if it works out.
I mean,
hopefully.
that is high hopes.
That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, but I think people would take the Tennessee plan right now, and we'll see how it shakes out.
I
But
take the Tennessee coach.
Take the Middle Tennessee coach.
Whoa.
Iowa won a game 7-3.
All right, good D.
That's football.
They lost a game 10-7. They lost another game 9-6.
The best part of what Stugotz is saying is that he doesn't realize that 7-3 game was a field goal and 2 safeties.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
It's why Iowa was the number 1 on my top 5 most boring things in sports. Just the entire state. All of it. Iowa.
I'm not joking when I say that Greg Cote was just muttering under his breath, and I heard these phrases, thinking about taking the Toenail on tour or making it an NFT. Just got to figure out what an NFT is. I'm not making.
all do.
I am not making that up. That's something that just happened. We will get to Greg Cote's rotten toenail in a second.
You're missing Plan C. Plan C is an OnlyFans.
Toenly fans.
Whoa!
We also have some,
don't know what that is
some
either.
sound that I want to get to, but right after taking the toenail on tour or making it an NFT, both Greg Cote and Stugotz put Justin Tucker in the Hall of Fame first ballot. Both of them
We
agreed.
did. He should take his toe on tour.
First,
That's right. He should.
first
Yeah, the whole
ballot
foot.
Hall of Fame. This is a stat from Field Yates. Justin Tucker has made 61 consecutive field goals in the fourth quarter and overtime. 27 of those are from 40-plus yards out.
What?
That's crazy.
But it's 61 consecutives, and it's also 18 for 18 in the final minute of regulation or overtime. So he's been perfect. He's never once missed a kick in the final minute of a game.
Chris Collinsworth was saying during that broadcast as he was walking out to make the game-winning kick that Justin Tucker is one of the best football players in the league, regardless of position. I do think he's a Hall of Famer. I do think he might be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is that good at what it is he does.
He's not one of the best football players. He's just he's an
Listen,
exceptional
Collinsworth
kicker.
said it. You love Collinsworth. I didn't say it. Collinsworth said it.
He's not a football player. He's a kicker.
part of football, Dan.
The sport is called football. All the other bits of football don't involve the feet. This involves the feet.
They all involve the feet.
Well,
I
they
mean,
sort of do.
they're
yeah.
all running, but they're not using the foot.
We know what you meant.
Onto the ball.
Well, they're standing.
Right.
You think Justin Tucker is a football player the same way all those other football players are football players?
No.
Okay,
But,
that's
but,
enough.
Wow.
No,
I mean,
but
that's-
if we do the,
But he does his job better
he's
than the other
better-
guys.
Yeah,
He's
he's
better
great.
at what he does than anyone. Honestly, we had a conversation a couple months ago about the use of the word goat. I don't think that presently there is more of a goat active in sports than Justin Tucker is goat at what he does.
That's
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
No, I think
You
Justin
sound
Tucker
crazy.
is more of a goat.
No,
sound
come on.
insane.
That's
He's
blasphemy.
more of a goat.
In
telling
all of
you.
sports?
In all of sports.
You sound
Brady's
Like
Go
Mike
to your-
Trout. You're talking like Mike Trout?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's better at what he
Right.
does relative to the rest of
Really?
his competition than Mike
Shohei
Trout.
Ohtani, some might say.
You regret saying it.
No,
It's
I
okay.
don't. No, I'm steadfast.
You got carried
in this
away.
opinion.
It happens.
Elite chess
When
player.
he's doubling down and he knows he's in a bad hand.
Cody and Stugotz don't like it when someone is one up there. Well, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer and he's more of a football
Easy.
player than all other football players. He's like, no one can go further than that with the take, and now they're jealous of how far you've taken it. Let's play the sound of Justin Tucker here saying, and we've got some sound to play for you, plenty of sound to play for you, because there was some good sound the last few days. Billy, what are you laughing about?
Chris, just before we've even heard this sound, announces this sound needs to get over
It
itself.
does. I mean, he's trying to make kicking sound like this deep art here.
I mean, he does actually achieve that, I think, in this soundbite, courtesy of NBC.
Just know when you're listening to this, I'm going to be rolling my eyes the entire time.
Okay, but we haven't played the sound yet. You guys were
Just picture me rolling my eyes while you're listening
All
to
right,
it.
so here's Justin Tucker talking about being a system kicker.
I mean, I love it and I hate it and everything in between. It's, I'd be lying to you if I said every time I go out there, I'm not just a little bit nervous. I'm not thinking about, worst case scenario, but it's really important to me and to us to take, those 1.3 seconds between the snap, the hold, and the kick, and just focus on the nuts and bolts of what's going to make the kick. And my feelings don't matter. What matters is seeing the ball snapped with 12 o'clock laces from Nick Moore, seeing the ball spotted cleanly from Jordan Stout, his first career game-winning hold. And then from there, I'm just a system kicker. The ball kicks itself at that point. And all we're really thinking about is those things that are going to make the kick. All the feelings and stuff, we can enjoy them after the fact.
The system kicker.
I love this.
The ball kicks itself.
Kicks itself at that point.
First career winning hold. Come on.
Put it on
Laces
the
over
at 12
yourself.
o'clock.
That's how you lead, though, Greg.
Guillermo, put it on the poll at LeBatard Show. Does the football kick itself at that point?
Did you see the placement of where the kick landed? They said that if the field goal posts were as wide as the football, it still would have gone through.
They said if it was a half yard wide, it still would have went through. Yes. He split the uprights.
That was my favorite. Was they measured it by like the degrees. The degrees on the field. It was like at 25.22 longitude, and Stugotz just tweeted, "Yeah, he split the uprights."
Enough of him. Every time he goes out there, he's a little nervous and envisions the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is you miss a kick. You're a kicker, all right? You're not a superhero saving the world.
I don't like that NBC tells you now would have been good from blank. I like that.
I don't like
Whitney
that
and
I
I,
like not knowing.
Whitney and I
Yeah.
have played the game recently of like what things you just yell at the TV screen. One of the things is I like to guess what it would have been good from.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Oh, that would have been good from 60. I don't want if it's just telling me it takes away that game for me.
Agreed.
You don't want to know if it's like 75?
Well, it's
though?
also
No.
bullshit. Like that's made up.
TMI.
What?
TMI.
No,
It is
come on.
TMI.
No, that's good information.
No,
I
it's
love
not.
when like they make a field goal from like 41 yards out and it's level with the top of the upright, and you go, I mean, that would have been good from 70. Like I do
Nah.
like that parlor game, but that
Parlor game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
a
I
parlor
like an
game.
announcer guessing it, not with facts. Just get, hey, that would have been good from 75.
Yeah,
but
no,
just guessing.
But
right?
put it at 75 and put that same situation on, and I guarantee you're not going to make it for 75.
I like the idea. Are you guys down for the idea of
Goalposts moving in and out. I
Yes.
love that idea. I
Yeah.
just see what you're doing
Right.
with your hands. Great idea.
like a pair of pliers that you
Yeah.
have to adjust? You move them.
It's not hard enough.
If
Like
you-
miniature golf
if
with
you-
a windmill.
but worth more points. Worth more points. Not going in and out, but if you need 10 points at the end of the game, they go ahead and they put the.
You call the
I like
groundskeeper,
that.
and they
You
kind
set
of
it-
like,
You
yeah.
set it to the 10-point width. That's
Man,
what you do.
right,
You're
Yes,
playing both
right.
sides.
I like that.
You just diminished Justin Tucker's credentials while while trying to make him even more important.
I
parlor
just made
game.
him less of a football player because the kicker. You can't say whatever Chris Collinsworth is, or whatever Stugotz is quoting Chris Collinsworth is saying, which is he's as much of a football player as the other football players.
He said he was the best football player on the field relative to his job, which is irrefutable, by the way.
Dan, was Mariano Rivera a baseball player?
Yes.
I mean, closer. I'm just saying
Yeah,
you can make the
come on,
similar.
pitch more than an inning. Yeah.
Oh, but he's doing the things the other baseball
they're
players
like one
are doing.
pitch.
He's
Yeah.
not
Cutter.
doing a job that's different from the one that
he's
everyone else who's playing football is doing.
he's doing the thing that 2 out of 18 people are doing.
Let's
You know what
watch
I mean?
Patrick Mahomes try to kick a 42-yard field
Yeah,
goal.
nobody else can do that. Listen, as the only
I don't
guy
know
in the
what we're
room
arguing.
who's kicked a 50-yard field goal, I can tell you it ain't easy. Nobody else on the field can do what Tucker does.
Chris,
Trust me.
Chris Cote, you've gotten to the bottom of this, right? You talked to Hal Habib, who was there, who remembers all the details differently, and he said that Greg made one kick, and it may have been from 30 yards, correct?
No.
Yeah, it was a little. Hal was basically just taking my dad's word for it. He's like, it was kind of long. I don't remember if it was exactly 50.
He
It's a little-
remembered.
Yeah.
Not really. It was
Yeah,
The thing is-
it's a matter of record on the Greg Cote Show podcast. Most downloaded episode ever when we had Hal Habib on. What a guest.
Yeah, Trey Habib was probably thinking the ball is at the 30-yard line, so that's like a 30-yard field goal. But you're not taking into account the fact that there's the 10 yards in the end zone, and then you have to go back a couple
7
feet.
yards for the whole.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Do you guys do that? Do you guys do that when you're watching a game? You look at the
17
yardage,
yards.
17
I
yards.
try to
boom, do the
figure
math.
out that. Yeah, it's difficult.
I'm always.
Math
I
is
tell
tricky.
everyone I'm
Yeah.
with. I'm like 48-yarder.
Dan, before we move on, let's go back to your game of the field goal posts that we're moving. How do you imagine that's executed? Because I like to think of it like the Price is Right yodeler guy that's going up the cliffhanger, and then you don't know where it's going to stop. So, like, you have a whole crowd of people, and the coach has told the officials where it is that they want to stop. So then you have the field goal post going in and out, and you just hear, right? And then you're like, where's it going to stop? Where's it going to stop? Where's it going to stop? And then people are cheering, go, 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 because they want it to go closer and closer and closer for it to be more points, and then it stops, and people are like, yeah, they go, Staley, you idiot, you did it again. Why aren't you going for a 7-point field goal instead of a 6-point field goal?
I want, more yodeling. Anywhere I can get more of that Price is Right yodeling in my
Yes.
life, anywhere. In the bedroom, I'll take it anywhere that it exists. Stugotz, you mentioned Staley, and I do need to get to this other sound, but Stugotz now wants to replace everybody's analytics guy. Everybody's analytics guy.
It's not that I want to replace everyone's analytics guy. Listen, you need a gut guy. That's what you need. You have to have an analytics department and then a gut guy who can say, hey, I know what the analytics say, but the flow of the game, no. Don't go for it here. Kick the extra point. Don't go for it on 4th down. Go for 3 instead of 7. Like, I see the need for analytics, Dan, but you also have to have a guy. What happened to the feel of the game?
Who would your gut guy be? Would it be
Me.
Jeff Fisher?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, you'd be the gut guy?
I mean, just a gut guy. There's a
Gotta be a
time
football
and a
guy. No,
place
So you've
for it.
appointed, you've done a national.
Ooh, Rob
John
Ryan.
Harbaugh's confused out there. He's going for it when he shouldn't be going for it. He's not going for it when he should be going for it.
Yep.
He don't know what to do anymore.
Hey, gut guy.
Analytics. They're in his head. Get a gut guy.
Gut coach.
Yep.
Bill Cowher's chin.
Yeah. Yes. Rex Ryan. Gut guy.
It's got to be a
Yes.
guy with an actual gut, though, right?
Rex
yeah.
Ryan's a foot guy. I
Has
thought.
to be.
Good point.
He loved that toe Hall of Fame talk that you guys were doing. Let's play the sound of the Nuggets announcer, Mike Ryan. He was talking. DeAndre Jordan is a Denver Nugget.
He is?
Yeah.
How?
This guy didn't know either.
What?
Best friend in the NBA, DeAndre Jordan.
Yes, and he is no longer with the Nets, even though he assembled that team. He assembled the Brooklyn Nets. He is now in Denver.
And got Kenny Atkinson fired because they wouldn't start him.
A lot of people might have lost that in the shuffle of all the NBA signings. So DeAndre Jordan is a Nugget, and Danny Green is a Memphis Grizzly.
Get out of here.
He's a Memphis Grizzly.
When we were talking the other day about Wembanyama, and we were talking about him having 7 threes and 5 blocks in a game, it's only happened one other time, and it was Danny Green.
All in an NBA Finals, right?
I don't know whether it was in the finals or not, but Danny Green has had 5 blocks. I do believe it was all on breakaways by the Miami Heat in that final.
Unreal.
He all on 3-on-1 breaks that the Heat had. He just kept blocking shots.
Anytime the Heat are in transition against Danny Green,
It was
I
terrifying.
just that's 60 the other way.
The Spurs had the advantage anytime the Heat were going of LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were going 3-on-1 on Danny Green. Let's listen to that sound of the Nuggets announcer again. This is DeAndre Jordan.
And at center from Texas A&M, number 6, DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Jordan.
Wow.
I mean,
This is Michael Malone.
I love that voice.
What you don't hear when they pot it all down is just, oh, fuck. And then he walks right out of the arena, never to return to his job.
I wish I heard that echoing too. The Ayton echo is so great.
I gotta hear it again.
Great. The Ayton echo is better than the Ayton.
And at center from Texas A&M, number 6, DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Jordan.
You had to wait for it to stop. I mean,
They turned the reverb down for Jordan. They should have just kept it up for Jordan.
And at center from Texas A&M, number 6, DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Jordan.
he tried to carry it himself.
You can't make that funnier. The 5 echoes is what does it, where he is haunted during the echoing of his mistake. He realizes very quickly, oh, I've got to get in there, but I'm not going to be able to muster the same enthusiasm for this.
DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Jordan.
He just walks to his car at that point, right? Like he just walks straight out of the arena, never to return.
It's the preseason for everyone, Dana.
DeAndre Jordan.
The other sound that I wanted to play for you, Stugotz, did you see at the center at after the Jackson State game involving Deion Sanders is the coach on one sideline, Eddie Robinson Jr. is on the other sideline. Not a junior to that Eddie Robinson, not the other, and Eddie Robinson, but not the former Grambling coach. Did you see what happened at the end of their game? The video?
I did not. No, I didn't see it.
They go to shake hands at the 50-yard line. Deion was not expecting anything, was going to go from handshake to shug, was going to bring it in for a hug, and Eddie Robinson just put a hand in his chest on the handshake. All he was giving him was the handshake, kind of pushed Deion, and then Deion was insulted and mad and stood at midfield all manner of pissed off, and they were both pissed off after the game. Here is Eddie Robinson Jr. talking about Primetime, who came out to shake his hand with something, a sweatshirt that read Coach Prime on it. Also, as Michael Irvin hyperventilates and goes crazy on First Take, making great television, Deion Sanders is going to the 50-yard line, and what I was taken aback by is how he's walking, because he's maybe the best athlete I've ever seen, and he's walking as if his feet are causing him a great deal of pain.
Well, he had 2 toes amputated.
Yeah, and so he doesn't look quite right, and you can see the indignance in him when Eddie Robinson Jr. pushes him in the chest.
I guess me being up front is just like, I thought it was a lot of disrespect the whole week. And so you're not going to be disrespectful the whole week in the media. We didn't talk in the pregame. I was out there the whole time at the 50-yard line. He walked through our whole our whole huddle on our end zone and came a long way around to get to his side of the field in the pregame. Thought that wasn't classy at all. And so in the postgame, I'm not about to give you the Obama bro hug. You know, I'm going to shake your hand and I'm going to go on. I'm going to always be respectful and respect the game. You know, you got the great guys, W.C. Gordons, Eddie G. Robinsons, those guys, Marino Chasm. I'm living on the shoulders of the SWAC. He ain't SWAC. You know, I'm SWAC. He ain't SWAC. So he's in the conference and doing a great job. Can't knock that. Got a great team. Son should be up for the Heisman Trophy win. I love Shador. Great player. I love what he's doing for the conference. Probably one of the best things we had since that Steve McNair era when he was in there. Love all of that. But you're not going to come here and disrespect me and my team and my school and then want to bro hug me. Shake my hand and get the hell on. Period. You got the W. Great job. I hope he comes back next year. I pray he don't get a Power 5 job so we can play them next year in Jackson. And I pray they put us for their damn homecoming.
It's a man who lost. I mean,
I love it.
It's because we know how we like to secure the perimeter around here, a bunch of dads in our lawns. The reason they didn't meet at midfield is because apparently Dion does a thing before. His feet might be hurting, but not enough where he can't he walks around the entire field. He just has to secure the perimeter before the game.
I mean, he's Dion, right? Like the best thing to ever happen to that conference, Deion Sanders. No?
I thought it was pretty telling. He's like, he's not SWAC. He's just a tourist here, basically. Like, he's probably going to go on to a Power 5 job very soon, and he's going to take all that excitement with him. And meanwhile, while he's here being a tourist, he's also going to be super disrespectful to everybody that's out here making a career of it in the SWAC.
But what is Eddie Robinson Jr. saying, that he wouldn't take the Nebraska job? Like, get out of here.
What Eddie Robinson is saying is, like, I live this. I'm here for the long haul.
I think Dion would agree with that, though. He wouldn't even take that as an insult. When you say he's not SWAC, he would say, yeah, I'm swag. I'm not SWAC. You're SWAC. I've never been whack. There's never been any whack in Deion Sanders.
But Dion did take exception to that SWAC comment. It's like, how am I not SWAC?
He's like, if anyone's SWAC, I'm SWAC. They had a SWAC off.
Swacking it.
Just two coaches swacking off.
That's right.
But I think you're right, Dan. Like, I think this guy would leave if he had the opportunity. So, like, what is he really? He's saying I'm SWAC because I haven't had a better opportunity.
I think what he's saying is, of course, I think he would take the Nebraska job, but he's not going to disrespect all the other coaches in the SWAC while doing so.
I don't know the history also on historically black colleges. I don't know Eddie Robinson Jr.'s history and what he's saying there. I mean, Deion Sanders went to FSU. I don't know how much of his roots. Like, he's coming to visit on his way to other jobs. I can't say flatly. I don't know the history enough to be able to just dismiss that Eddie Robinson Jr. would leave there. I don't know that. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I don't feel comfortable saying that about him without knowing anything.
And we also don't know what Deion Sanders' coaching options were when he began his coaching career, but he chose to coach in the SWAC because he wanted to do work at historically black colleges and recognizing that NIL could potentially open things up for historically black colleges. He's done an incredible thing for this conference, but I guess there are other people that look at it, wait, you're taking the headlines away from the rest of us, and you're also not going to be here for the long haul. You're not going to be about this life for your entire career.
He's been there 3 years. He's given that conference a lot of visibility, if anything, right?
But it's a stepping stone,
Yeah, of course
Stugotz.
it is.
Everybody,
Yes.
Deion Sanders has to start there because we don't give him the Steve Kerr job, or we don't give him the job. He's got to go earn it. When he was saying he wanted to be a head coach 10 years ago in the NFL, everybody's like, you can't cut that line. You're Deion Sanders. Nobody would make you the head coach. So he's got to earn it. And this is where it started. I think he told us that he had another job offer that was a good job offer, that was a Power 5 job offer, and he turned it down.
He's alluded that since he took the Jackson State job, he's been in contact with Power 5 schools and big schools that wanted to give him. Jackson State was, in essence, him cutting the line. He had success as a high school football coach. He didn't have to be a coordinator or anything like that at any other school. He became a head coach in college football, granted at the SWAC, and now he has proof of concept, and big schools are circling him. And I don't think that this is a discussion. He could be a tourist in the SWAC, and Eddie Robinson doesn't invoke that if he just doesn't feel disrespected by Deion Sanders in the pregame and not talking to him and then trying to bring it in tight at midfield after the game.
Well, let me ask you guys this question. As Mel Tucker gets a long deal based on 1 year at Michigan State that didn't actually mean that their program was fixed, as we have the conversation around Lincoln Riley bringing his own players, I just ask you this, wherever you are in college football. If I tell you Deion's coming and he's bringing what he got at Jackson State with him, like not just Deion and the aura and all the dads want to be in the living room with their kid being recruited by Deion. If Deion comes with the players, if the Deion package now has on its resume that he's not just been in Aflac commercials and not just made a program relevant, but he comes with a gaggle of players as well. Don't you want that?
Yes. Yeah, you want that name. You want the guy who can bring players and recruit other players. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you want that?
Georgia Tech is a really interesting fit.
So is Auburn.
The state of Georgia is like kind of caught up to Texas and Florida in terms of recruiting talent. And I know that the standards at that school are super high to get in. I feel like Coach Prime would find a way to get whoever he wants at Georgia Tech. And that's you're immediately getting in the game the way that Jackson State got in the game. Jackson State got the top recruit in the nation overall just because Coach Prime was there. All of a sudden, you put Coach Prime in Atlanta, Georgia. It's an inspired hire.
Dion has been there for 3 seasons. Eddie Robinson Jr., this is his first season in the SWAC. I would say Dion is more SWAC. I mean, I would. 3 seasons he's been there.
Eddie Robinson played in the SWAC.
Okay, so
he's part of the SWAC Alumni Association.
This is his first year coaching,
I'm just saying, this guy has, he didn't do any other coaching before that. He's, been dedicated to this conference and then now is coaching.
Again, though, I want to ask you guys, as we play mercenary ball, it's professional football now. It will continue to change more and more. I don't know if the interest will change. I don't know if how they package it will change. But already you've been jarred. Transfer portal. We are playing minor league football. It's professional football. It's also big business football. Tons and tons of money. Who's more ready-made for your coaching job? If you're a program that wants to get into the game, then Deion Sanders as an exciting splash hire. This is what we do, right? We hire a coach who's going to bring enthusiasm and sell tickets. Stugotz. It's not just that, I put him pretty high on the list of whoever's available. Deion has always said, because I've asked him about this, he wanted to start just coaching an NFL team. And I'm like, you can't just do that. And he's like, why not? Why can't I do it? If I get all the coordinators and all I have to be is face and voice and just be in charge, why can't I do it? And so he's got to do it on the bottom rung of sports, but he's done on the bottom rung of sports. He's made them matter in mercenary ball, a school that has no right to. He's in insurance commercials across Nick Saban in a way you'd never put Brian Kelly there. You tell me who you'd put higher on the list now that we're playing a different game. It's mercenary ball. I need to sell tickets. It's a business. It is a business. I need to run my athletic department. Everyone sees it's a business. You give me all the hires that are better than a ready-made coach who comes with that personality and a bunch of players.
Well, if the criteria is face, voice, tickets, and attention, he's top tier. But I am asking, because I don't know the answer, has anyone said he's a great coach? I don't know that answer.
He's 20-5.
I feel he can figure all that stuff out the way Cristobal does. I'd rather spend my $80 million like that.
Was Gene Chizik a great coach? Well, sometimes you just have more talent. Yeah, is it sustainable? It wasn't for Gene Chizik. Maybe it's not.
But Mike, he's getting the talent.
If he's
kids are going to that school for Deion Sanders.
Certainly in the SWAC, a talent advantage certainly matters.
His name recruits.
Yes.
Even though I don't think he won his bowl game, there's still some, I guess, tactical questions that are reasonable to have about Deion Sanders.
That's what I'm asking.
But you can get coordinators. He knew how to study the game. I mean, you tell me how many people know football better than Deion Sanders. People think it was all athleticism. It was not with him. It's not with anybody in that sport. He was super meticulous as a studious player.
Oh, I think you'll figure it out. You get the recruits that he's going to get. They're obviously going to be successful, and coaches are drawn to that kind of talent because it gives them an opportunity to shine. And if he's the kind of coach that just says, hey, I'm going to let the assistants do their job, then all of a sudden it's an amazing opportunity for one of those great next up-and-coming head coach and waiting types.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the programs that are thinking about hiring Georgia Tech, what do they have to lose? Right. They ran the triple option. They ran the triple option for 10 years. They hired Tempo's coach. Yeah. It didn't work. They should try. Even if Deion Sanders isn't a great tactical coach, it almost doesn't matter. It's worth trying. Worth trying for a level of school.
I don't want to insult him as a tactical coach and assume that he can't be a tactician. I do want to discuss with the audience as we head into Stugotz, $8 billion for a conference on TV rights. You want to be one of the players that matter in the SEC game just on fame alone and winning the press conference. Never mind coming with a gaggle of players. You tell me Deion Sanders isn't immediately going to sell tickets with his mouth? Stugotz, Georgia Tech is a nowhere program the entire time we've been alive. Hey, with Calvin Johnson, anybody else, Georgia Tech hasn't mattered near Atlanta.
No, he's the guy that I'm trying to think if there's anyone else out there. Urban's an obvious name, but
again with this.
I think Matt Rule's probably a name that a lot of
insulting.
colleges.
Matt Rule's going to get
love
attention.
of God.
He's going to
1990.
get a big job, Dan.
Georgia Tech won a
Why?
national championship in 1990.
That's right.
If you're Matt Rule,
Shared
Bobby
with Colorado.
Ross. Yeah.
why on earth would you coach again if you're Matt Rule?
I was going to say this to you, Billy. I feel like this is your corner, and you beat me to it. But like the idea that Matt Rule is owed $40 million, and all the tweets yesterday were about, oh, he's got offset language where if he takes a college job, then he doesn't get the $40 million. I'm just, who the hell wouldn't just take the parachute of the $40 million?
Plan a vacation.
Like a vacation for a year and a half.
He gets just under $1 million a month for the next 4 years.
You could go on one of those 6-month cruises. You
Oh
seen
my
those
God.
things? It's always like, who could do that?
My dream.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about like Wi-Fi packages on that. Like maybe get a job that I can work from home, just be on the cruise all the time. You know, oh, I'm in Cairo. Hold on a second, we got to record with Golick today, and then we'll hop right back in and off to the pyramids.
The best part of Dion coaching is just his pregame speeches, and then afterwards he says, "Now hit my music," and then the music starts, and he just
best.
walks out to the bounce.
In SWAC.